A thought occurs to me while researching species for the Cultural Index. Why are so many aliens across so many franchises humanoid and sometimes even just human looking? Well, because it's easy for the makeup department. Alright, fine, well, joking aside, it really is. Plus, it's easier to make a compelling narrative when the features of a race reflect us. We can read their emotions, see their body language and empathise with them in a way that's harder to do with a generic blob monster. But if you know this channel, then you know that a normal boring explanation won't satisfy me in the least. So let's dig into the lore reasons why some of the most iconic sci-fi races are just humans with silly foreheads. Well, for a start, there are the common themes of evolution. We evolved from prey. We walk on two legs because it gives us a greater view of our surroundings, better to spot danger. We have our heads at the top because it's where we keep our senses, and our brains close behind them to quickly interpret those senses. We're intelligent because as prey, we needed to outsmart our predators rather than overpower them. It stands to reason that life forms on similar worlds would evolve in the same way, to a degree. The smart life is likely to be the prey that got smarter until it wasn't prey anymore. But that still doesn't cover all the bases. Surely there's other evolutionary paths to consider. Well, for example, Star Trek. Kirk was wrestling with aliens and wrestling with aliens for decades before it was explained why Orions looked like green humans or Vulcans were pointy-eared people. In fact, it was down to the Next Generation episode, The Chase, to tell us why. In this episode, the crew come across some research that's begun to decipher a pattern in a seemingly junk DNA segment of the human race. All of that useless DNA that isn't utilised in the construction of you? Yeah, there seems to be a message buried in that. And not just humans. Klingons, Romulans, Vulcans, Cardassians all have this hidden code, or at least a fragment of it, buried in their DNA since forever. To cut a long story short, eventually they decipher the code after sharing their research and they rendezvous at a seemingly unremarkable planet that supposedly has the last element they need to complete what now appears to be a computer program. On completion, the code reveals that millions of years ago, before the current races we see today had even evolved into anything that didn't squelch, an early humanoid race, in fact the first humanoid race, travelled across the galaxy and discovered no life like their own. When they realised the scarcity of life in an early universe, they decided to introduce their DNA into thousands of planets, into their local proto-life forms. The hope was that these life forms would eventually celebrate their similarities and exist in peaceful cooperation. Yeah, well, that last bit didn't exactly work out as planned, really. But a shared ancestor in the evolutionary link is a theme common in many science fiction works. So that's Star Trek. But what about another franchise? Well, let's look at Doctor Who. Well, we all have two explanations here, and both make a kind of sense. The Timelords were one of the first civilizations to evolve in the galaxy, even before they invented time travel. And, well, what's one of the first things a time traveller might want to go look at? The creation of the universe. So off they went, back in time to see how it all began. But their very presence created a morphagenic field at the beginning of everything. This field was carried across the universe as a sort of energy template, a blueprint that resonates with all organic life that evolved. I don't entirely understand that either, but the point is, by exposing themselves to the creation of the universe, their image, the Gallifreyan blueprint, was echoed across many other species, leading to a lot of races looking Time Lord, including humans. Another theory from the Doctor Who mythos is that Rassilon, the megalomaniacal Time Lord president, was so obsessed with bringing Gallifrey to ultimate power that he even went so far as to alter the evolutionary direction of many species to create life in his own image. A wee bit narcissistic, sure, but if you've seen my video on Rassilon you might see why this explanation has some validity. Okay, so a common ancestor is one explanation, meddling is another, accidental or not. But what about a technology that could do it? Okay, spoilers ahead for the Mass Effect trilogy here. Well, Mass Effect had a race called the Protheans, an ancient race that had long ago since disappeared, and left behind only relics of their technology to guide civilizations to interstellar travel. Only it turns out it wasn't the Protheans who left the technology, it was in fact a far older civilization than them, dating back again all the way to an early race of spacefaring Leviathans. These guys ran the universe for millennia until they created the Reapers that wiped them out and saved their genetic makeup as a new Reaper. The Reapers then spread their technology throughout the galaxy, providing a means for intelligent life to thrive, evolve and grow from agriculture to interstellar travel, all on a silver platter. The mass relays linked solar systems together and allowed for direct travel between them, but, like taking a highway between towns, you couldn't divert from the path. So the only systems we encounter in the Mass Effect universe are ones that have had Reaper interference. The Reapers then retreated from the galaxy to wait for the birth of new civilizations, at which point they would return. So, all across the galaxy, cultures and species evolved along these evolutionary milestones until they reached space travel. It stands to reason that when provided with the same technologies and those similar solar systems linked by the mass relays, that life would take similar evolutionary paths, for the most part. Now, not every species in Mass Effect looks exactly humanoid. In fact, there's a greater degree of diversity here than even in Star Trek, for example. The Hanar, for example, are intelligent jellyfish.
Because it's a big, stupid jellyfish.
Although they were artificially elevated to intelligence, it shows that there can be outliers to this theory. It's also worth bearing in mind that the mass relay network only connects certain systems. So those places out in the reaches of unexplored space may have radically different designs and truly bizarre alien life, but we just don't get to see it in Mass Effect, because the time it takes to get anywhere, even at FTL speeds, is limited and would effectively isolate them. Of course, this theory only really holds water as long as there's mass relays. If we encounter a species from a galaxy without them, for example, it's highly unlikely they would be humanoid or resemble us at all. In fact, that would be completely God damn it, Andromeda. Another idea is the God theory, the idea that there is in fact a mystical force that we don't understand that permeates creation. Often this is interpreted as the progenitor race idea, but sometimes it's simply as it sounds. All life was created by a design, a truly omnipotent one or not. This theory has the added benefit of washing away complicated scientific ideas and replaces it with because it is. Often this opens the way for more philosophical questions about the nature of life and the meaning of existence in an almost infinite universe, and oh dear, I've gone cross-eyed. The final lore theory I'm going to throw out there is from, of all things, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. I know, right? But listen to this.
Long ago, in an era of expansion, our race spread out through the stars, seeking new worlds to settle upon. We built outposts on other planets, using great machines to reshape environments to our needs.
So this is simply a direct humans are aliens from another world hint. Not the prime example of this, I know, but it was the first one that came to mind. So that's it. What other reasons for human-looking alien life are there? I'm aware that every science fiction has its own lore reasons for the cost-effective makeup decisions, and I'm curious to hear them. Hell, why not even throw me some made-up ones for laughs in the comments section? If you've enjoyed this and are new to the channel, thanks for watching and I hope you'll check us out. To everyone else, again, thanks for watching and I hope you found this interesting. I know it's a bit rambly, but I just wanted to share some thoughts on a subject I thought was pretty cool. I've been Rick and this has been Certifiably Ingame. Thanks again and live long and may the timey-wimey force be with you.